Yeah, why don't we just touch on that right up front? So I think we're all really excited for a Switch 2. I love my Switch, but that thing, it barely sees any mileage nowadays, except for Tears of the Kingdom. And it's not that I don't like the thing, it's just that it can't really compete with other consoles or platforms right now, especially in the age of the Steam Deck and all those. So third party games aren't great. And we get like one first party Nintendo game a year, maybe, that justifies its use. So I feel
Yeah.
bad. Like I barely touched the thing except for Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm in a similar boat. I used to play a lot of Pokemon games on my handheld, but for some reason I just can't get into them anymore. Even if they like finally they were like trying something new with like the latest one that they released. Can't even remember the name because there have been so many. It's like uh, I don't know.
Exhibit A.
Do you
Yeah.
remember? Yeah. People in the chat will let us know.
Point
I tried
proven.
it for like 2 hours and I was like, I just can't. This looks like a freaking Nintendo 64 game. But like remember Stadium on 64 looked amazing, and this kind of looks like that. Either way, I am in the same boat, and I like the handheld always more than the Nintendo console, and I just feel that we didn't have a lot of handheld games. They did release Ghost Trick. I'm not sure if you played that.
No.
In this like a month ago from the Phoenix Wright makers, because I love Phoenix Wright, and that is like a gem. Like it's a very old game, but they re-released it. So if you have a Switch and want like a cool sort of detective story with really cool plot twists and stuff, I can recommend that. But yeah, I already played that. I played a lot of Arms, as I already told you, in the plane, and people were like looking at me, "What the heck? Why is he like
Just
punching
so
his
funny.
the,
Just to
the
imagine
neighbor
that.
in front of him?" So I played some Arms and some Splatoon. I'm a huge Splatoon fan, but Splatoon 3 booted it up, and I was like, yeah, sure, they added new weapons, and I don't know, like what is next, right? I always like it when Nintendo tries new IP like Splatoon and like with Arms, even though maybe that wasn't that great in the end. But we haven't really seen a lot of that. It feels like they're just repeating. Okay, for every system, we're gonna launch one Smash Bros, one Mario 3D game. Now like they're doing the same thing again. So
Well,
we
and
will
even
see.
then, that barely holds true because even Mario Kart on the Switch right now, I know it's got a lot of DLC and stuff, but it's just a port of the Wii U game. Like, it's just a port.
Yeah.
So, maybe they're just going to knock our socks off with this next Switch 2 or whatever they end up calling it. A Switch U, maybe? That would end
No,
great, right?
they won't go back to that. They won't go
Yeah, oh, dear God, please. But I mean, let's actually touch on what they've shown. So there were some leaks that came out. These were reported by Video Games Chronicle, who kind of collected all of them together. These are people that have development kits, because apparently some studios have actually already received dev kits, which is tremendous because this is a full year ahead of schedule, or ahead of launch rather. So that's interesting. And as for individual tidbits, one of their main goals is that they're trying to make sure that they have enough stock that pretty much anybody who wants one on launch day can get one. I don't know if you guys
Still not gonna
remember.
happen though.
Yeah, it's still never going to happen. I don't know if you guys remember, the Switch back in 2017 was like impossible to find for 2-3 months. Like impossible. And that was pre-COVID.
Longer, feels like.
I think it
Longer.
depended on where you were. Where I was, it was, let's see, it launched early March, and then I was able to walk in and buy one, or like in May, and they had like one or two in the store at a time, so it wasn't like they just had ample stock, but they had enough. But in some parts of the world, it certainly was harder to get them than others. And again, that was pre-COVID. At least the PS5 and Xbox consoles that came out in 2020 had the excuse of COVID supply chain stuff. But this was just when everything was working fine, they couldn't supply enough. So they're apparently trying to work on that to make sure that they have ample stock available, which is cool. They also were told that this next-gen console is going to be used or able to be used in a portable mode. So it seems like they're sticking at least to a semi-similar form factor as what we have now. As to whether it'll look like the Switch or maybe it'll look like, I don't know, a DS, I have no idea. I don't know if anybody's spoken to that, but at the very least, it seems like it's going to be one of those hybrid consoles, which I think is cool. It's one of my favorite things about the Switch.
For sure.
But here's where the disappointment kind of starts to set in. I saw Zach Plays mention this in chat. 2 different sources have reported to VGC that the console could launch with an LCD screen instead of a more premium OLED in order to bring down costs, especially considering the increased storage needed for higher fidelity games. The current Switch only comes with 32 gigs of internal memory, which is freaking hilarious, while other current gen PlayStation Xbox games often come in at over 100 gigs by themselves, much less, for the entire console. Which is just kind of a bummer. Like, if you guys have not seen the Switch OLED and compared it to the original Switch, it's not even close. Like, it is stupid how much better the OLED looks. And to take people and be like, yeah, now you've got to go back. I'm sure the LCD is going to be improved and like look better than the original one back in 2017, but it still is a bummer because it frankly is a step back, and that's what it's going to feel like. I don't know, Jorab, am I overreacting? Are we being silly?
I never expected an OLED though, so it's not like it sucks to like read that because I trust VGC, so I do think that this is probably happening. But from their perspective, like it makes sense. Like they want to sell you the OLED model later on again, but it still sucks. Yeah, like it will be weird to like play a like higher fidelity. So the rumors before this, or I think even like Bobby Kotick said it during the FTC loss or trial against Microsoft, that they would have the power of the PS4 and Xbox One. So even though the games will look like better than the current Switch, it will like on this like 720p screen, because they might like keep 720. I can totally see Nintendo do that because it's like such a small screen anyways. It will still look worse because of the LCD versus OLED. So that kind of sucks. But like with the DS, you also had the large later. Like they did that all the time. So it's not a surprise, but it's still like disappointment for sure.
Yeah. Well, and if you guys remember back when the Switch OLED was still just a rumor, it was being leaked at the time. I just tried to find the article on it. I couldn't find it. But the original reports of a Switch OLED came because Nintendo purchased millions of these little 7-inch OLED 720p screens. And that stood out because everybody's like, okay, what the hell else are they going to do with 720p OLED screens? Okay. And apparently they got a great deal on them, and they were very, very cheap compared to what they normally would be, because it had something to do with the original manufacturer was shutting down production of screens like that. So they had this surplus. I don't understand of course, manufacturing of consoles like this, but that apparently had a lot to do with the Switch OLED even being created, that they got a really good deal on these screens, and that made it much more affordable. Frankly, it's unlikely that they are getting a similar deal for a next gen console, and so it's just a little bit of a bummer. Like, I'm still gonna buy one. I think most of us are probably still gonna buy one because everybody loves Nintendo stuff. But in a perfect world, we would have an OLED screen. So that was kind of the first bummer bit, I think.
Do you think it's 4K though, with the dock?
I mean, it depends on who their chip partners are. I think probably more likely they do something kind of like the PS4 Pro did, where the dock, like, I don't know if they have like an upscaler built into the dock or what they do. But I mean, talking about costs, doing something like that, making the dock an actual like pretty expensive piece of hardware that's upscaling, that's not a layup, because right now the dock pretty much is just like a holder for it. Then you can plug in directly, and then it's like an HDMI output that reroutes it. It's a very simple piece of hardware. So maybe they just have it all native on the actual device, but again, I imagine that drives up costs. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it would be kind of weird though if it's not 4K, or if they maybe launched 2 docks, but that would make things super complicated, because usually the only complicated thing that Nintendo does is 2 colors. Like the Wii U was black and white, and the Switch also had like the colorful Joy-Cons and the gray ones.
But like
So
for sure, like you're saying, for sure they have to do 4K, right? Even in
I would
2017,
imagine.
people were like
Yeah, but
1080p.
they can get away with it though.
Yeah, that's true. I just like now I think when I was selling TVs in Best Buy and at Magnolia Home Theater back in like 2017, 18, at that time, the standard size had just shifted from like 55 inches for a TV on average that we would sell to 65 inches. I spoke to a buddy of mine who still works there after all these years, and he said now the average TV that they sell is around 75 inches. So when you think of a 75-inch diagonal screen, 1080p on that frankly looks like ass. On a handheld, 720p works fine because it's so small. But on a big 75-inch screen,
Who has a 75-inch screen that is buying a Nintendo console?
well, anybody that wants to play like Mario Kart or something. Like,
I mean, a split
enjoy
screen is
playing it.
great on that, I would imagine.
Yeah. No, it can be. But like, even I have upstairs in our family room, I have a projector that Hisense, shout out to Hisense, sent me, that is like 110 inches diagonally.
Damn.
This is like so stupid that if you do a 4-player split screen in Mario Kart, the equivalent size is that each person gets a 55-inch TV to themselves. I'm not even joking. Or like a 50-inch TV. It's just silly. It's like
That's
straight up
insane. That's
stupid.
insane.
And frankly, trying to play, like I tried to play Tears of the Kingdom on that big screen when it first came out, and it looked so rough. It was honestly a little jarring because you just don't realize what 1080p stretched up like that is like until you realize that each pixel is like 3 square inches. You know, it just like doesn't really work.
Sec Play says there are cables that you can buy for the current Switch to upscale it. So maybe they do it like that, although I don't imagine that the quality is that great. Although I'm like that they have like this regular dock and then they have this peripheral where you can upscale to 4K if you want.
Yeah, I've seen those cables, just for the record. And like I said, I used to sell TVs. So at one time I would have like been trying to sell people those cables, and they're all kind of BS. The only stuff that's actually upscaling, like I have, if you have a 40 series graphics card, you can try this right now. There's something you can go into the NVIDIA control panel with and do the super, I think it's called super resolution or something. And that basically allows you to upscale and like actually upscale, where it's actually using the same RTX DLSS algorithms to upscale a low resolution video up to 4K to fill your screen. And it does work, but that thing takes like a 4070 or a 4090 and spends like 20% or 30% of its compute power to do that. And so a cable's not going to be doing it. It just frankly won't. No. It just won't. But anyway.
Yeah, there's more news because when is it coming out?
So I'm trying to find the exact bit here. So this guy, Tokyo-based industry consultant, Dr. Serkan Toto, told VGC that a 2024 console launch would make sense for Nintendo since it's projected to see double-digit declines in Switch hardware and software sales this year alone, after it cleared 7 years in the market. He said, quote, "I would generally say that looking at Nintendo's financials, it seems clear that it's time for a new piece of hardware in 2024. Hardware is already projected to fall 16.5% year on year in the current fiscal year, while the minus for software is expected to hit 15.9%. The only way to stop these losses from totally ballooning next fiscal year is a new device. And the second half of 24 sounds like a realistic release window to me."
Yeah, and that's also what sources are saying to VGC. So the sources are saying that to VGC, and then this analyst is like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we got like 2 separate sources kind of talking about that. My question to you is then, what do you think the launch lineup will look like?
I mean, they're obviously, at least it seems obvious to me, I don't think they're launching it with a Zelda game at launch, so they're not going to be able to rely on that. I think the layup probably seems like a Mario game because we haven't had a new one from their first-party team since Odyssey.
Yeah.
That seems like a layup. Maybe they have honestly been working on a fresh new Mario Kart all this time, and that's what they're going to launch.
Yeah. I think that is like a lock-in. I think you can really lock that in because that's the ARMS team that made that, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the Wii U version that they added some stuff onto. So 100% that they've been sitting on this Mario Kart game. I think there were even rumors, I think, at one point that there was like this Mario Kart game in development. But I always go back, and I thought that was interesting to what Ubisoft said about Mario plus Rabbids. So they, like Nintendo, like warned them saying, you should better hold on to that game until the next Switch, because that's what again of Nintendo does. They launch one version of each type of game in one generation, and having Mario plus Rabbids, what you saw when that game came out, Sparks of Hope, the second game, was that the Kingdom Battle like increased in sales. People were like, whoa, I can also buy this similar game for $10. Why would I buy the new one for 60? So Nintendo said to them, wait for the next Switch and then launch the game. And I now see that like theory from their own theory, like they're going to apply that to all their games as well. And what's the best selling game on the Switch? Mario Kart. So having that day one on there is gonna be insane. Like that's gonna move units. That's gonna be the best selling game for the new Switch probably as well.
Yeah.
And they haven't had a new one since. I mean, really, they haven't had a new one since Mario Kart 8 launched on Wii U. If you can really you don't
must be like a decade, or probably over a decade. Like that's crazy. So
Yeah.
I think those are no-brainers, and at least in my experience, it seems like 3 launch titles is really solid for most consoles. If they're specifically must-buy titles, like 3 games that you buy for your new console that you can play, each a little bit different. I think that is enough to buy like a couple months or a few months until third-party stuff comes out. So frankly, if they come out with an Odyssey or a Super Mario 3D game, and then they also come out with Mario Kart, and then maybe they have a big third-party title launching as well, that could be enough to grease the wheels.
Zombie U2. Zombie U2. Remember Zombie U from Ubisoft? It was there was like at the start of the Wii U, a lot of the games, of course, used the gimmick where you would look at the tablet and then not at the screen. And
oh yeah,
it was like a roguelite zombie game.
Oh dude, I
Ubisoft.
totally forgot about this. Oh my god.
Zombie U2. I think they even did a second game now that I think about it, but I might be wrong on that. Either way, Ubisoft is always there at the launch. Although with them like really focusing on the big Assassin's Creed titles, I can see them do like a RPG trilogy. Like if the Switch 2 is really PS4, Xbox One, I can see them launch Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla on the Switch. I think a lot of companies are gonna launch their PS4 games on the Switch too.
Yeah,
I think that's gonna make a lot of sense.
My question though is like, does that even have the same drive as when they were bringing like 360 games to the Switch? Because now there are new players in the market, specifically with cloud gaming, with like xCloud, and then also all the other handhelds you can get, like the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally or any of these other. PlayStation's about to launch one. Do you think that actually like drives as much attention or sales as it did with the Switch?
You mean xCloud versus like just having it natively on the Switch?
Yeah, I just mean like the market's changed since they were releasing 360 games back in 2018, 2019, and there's more competition now.
We haven't had like I mean, they did of course launch all the old Assassin's Creed games on the Switch, but we haven't had like an RPG game on the Switch. And I do think that would make a lot of sense, like because I think what you actually see with like streaming, and that's why I think they're kind of getting a pass, Microsoft, right now with their Activision deal, is that it's still like very, very early. Like not a lot of people are using xCloud, even though it's like pretty solid. But it's just not in people's minds yet that you can also play games that way. And the people that want to do that have a console anyway, or are up to date and have other better options. But like being able to play Odyssey on the road offline, I think is gonna be pretty cool. And a lot of people haven't played that game who only own a Nintendo platform, but heard good things about it. So I think there's a market for that, but even if there's not a market for that, they will do it because the Ezio Collection, Black Flag, Rogue, like all those games are on Switch, even Witcher 3. So They're
Yeah.
gonna like just port everything. And I personally think Mario Kart and the Mario 3D game too much at launch. What Nintendo really saw is we need to have a good launch year, because really the first year of the Switch, I would argue, is still the best year for the Switch. So I think it's gonna be October launch or something, Mario Kart, Pokemon, like a brand new game in November, and then like maybe Mario in March or something, like that they really space it out. People are also saying Metroid Prime 4 that they already announced. Maybe that is the Breath of the Wild type of game that comes to the first Switch and the second one, because they already, I think, announced it for the first Switch. But yeah, who knows?
We'll see. I mean, it's gonna be exciting. We're gonna have like allegedly the PS5 Slim launching this year. Then we're gonna have Project Q soon after, and then we're gonna have potentially a PlayStation Pro or PlayStation 5 Pro, whatever that looks like.
2024 is going to be huge. Yeah.
It's going to be big. Xbox apparently is just totally sitting it out. There's been a lot of reports that they are just not at all interested in doing mid-gen refreshes. And we talked about this last week. They apparently consider the Series S to be the current gen console, and the Series X is their mid-gen refresh that they launched 3 years ago. Because that makes total sense. Yeah. That's how that works. Stefan, thank you for the 25. Switch 2 needs to be as portable as Switch. Otherwise, some of my favorite games, Witcher 3, Cyberpunk 2077, are already playable on the deck. Hope Nintendo can pull it off. I hope so too. Whenever, like, Nintendo is very creative. I don't know if they honestly just do a straight up kind of reworked version of the Switch, or if they're going to try to do something really novel and different. I kind of hope for something crazy different, because I never knew I wanted a Switch until we got it. But
yeah, they always do it.
Well, we say always, but then we look at the Wii U, and that was like a huge stumbling block.
It was something completely different. Like, it was still a stumbling block, but it was still something different.
Yeah, it's just everybody thought.
I know, I don't want that, but I like, they have been saying this for the longest time, because that's of course where things have been moving, is that they don't want to reset everyone. Like that's of course what happened with the Switch as well, and I think every Nintendo console, that you have to buy all these games again. And now with Nintendo Online being way more prominent, I do think, and that's actually also interesting from the article, that they are like still unsure, or that it's like still not decided, which might seem weird because it's coming out next year, but about backwards compatibility, because actually publishers are saying, publishers have said to express concerns that legacy support for Switch games could negatively affect sales of next-gen titles. Like, I think Ubisoft is like, no, I don't want people to be able to carry over Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle or Sparks of Hope, because I want to sell them again.
Yeah,
and that's of course always been the case on Nintendo platforms, and I'm curious what they will do with that. But it would suck, and it would, like, for Nintendo, it would be really great if all your Switch games would work, and like it would be amazing if Tears of the Kingdom is suddenly 60 FPS on the Switch too, right? That would be like a dream come true. But yeah, we will have to wait and see.
It's gonna be really fascinating, because Nintendo can get away with a lot. Let's be honest. So if they came out and they said, nope, Switch games don't work on this, whatever they call this, maybe instead of the Switch, it's the click or something, and instead of clicking like or snapping their hands, they just like clap randomly. It'll just one gimmick for another. But it's going to be fascinating to see, and I think everybody is waiting with bated breath to see what this actually is like.
And they're probably going to do a 1-2 Switch 2.
1-2 1-2 Switch 2, with the third one coming soon after 1-2 Switch 3. Oh my god. Midikar Marius, thank you. To me, the Switch seems like the design Nintendo had worked towards since the NES and Game Boy. I can't see them going away from this design. I think you could have also said that about the DS as well, though. And they walked away from the DS because of the Switch's success. So I guess if we look at maybe an archetype of what they're going to be doing with this next release, maybe it's just going to be the new DS thing, where they just will always have basically a Switch. And they add a second screen maybe to it, or something a little bit different.
That actually doesn't, because yeah, that actually doesn't, because I think what the person here is saying, Midtoker, is that they are right, because the DS was kind of the Wii U in a way. Only you could detach the screens, or you had like 2 screens. So, and the Switch was kind of like what the Wii U tried to be, because the Wii U, you could not take it anywhere else. You had to, you were attached to the screen. So maybe that I think that's a pretty solid like idea, that it's like 2 screens, or like a DS again, but then you detach once. I don't know how that's gonna work. Nintendo will figure it out. But then we go back to the 2 screen, because I did like some of the things they did, which are inventory always being visible on the bottom screen. I liked Metroid controls with the stylus, like using that as your analog stick. I love that stuff. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah, we're all super pumped, and I cannot wait to see what they do with it. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.